One sec.
Okay.
All right, so perfect. Thank you everyone for joining us for another Tech Talk this Friday. I am Regina here with the Tech Academy, and today we have Kyle Rhône, who is going to discuss game development with us. And Kyle, for over 20 years, had been working in creating animations for the Portland entertainment industry. And for the past 12 years, he's been working in game development. So he's definitely got a lot of experience on his hand, and he's going to give an awesome presentation today. Thanks for being here, Kyle.
All right. Thank you for having me. Yes. Sorry. So yeah, thanks for the intro. I will kind of maybe lead you through a little bit of what I've done, just so you kind of get a flavor of like who I am and whether or not you should listen to me. So a couple things first. I own a company, Tinderbox. This is our website. Got nothing on there. You can't reach us. You have to know us. But used to present you with a little bit more stuff that we've done. And I have yet to really throw up our entire portfolio really anywhere. But let me just kind of go through our kind of biggest hits / failures. Here is a Munchkin video that my company was in the middle of making Munchkin the card game into a Xbox 360 video game. And this is some of the art that we got through before the project was canceled, and it's really too bad. We really wanted this one to come out, but that's maybe the first thing that I would tell everyone about the game industry and software development, or any creative field, in fact, is you're going to throw away a lot of work. A lot of your work is not going to see light of day. And, you still make portfolio pieces. And your portfolio is your key to entry everywhere. So if you're not working on your portfolio, you're wasting your time. So be sure to be able to prove you can do what you say you can do. As long as your words and your actions match up in this industry, everybody, will give you a lot of leeway to make mistakes. And I haven't really seen that in other industries, like the animation industry, for instance. You can't make any mistakes. They're very cutthroat, and you're always kind of in competition with one another. And when I switched to game design, because it's a lot of the same skill sets as you find in animation, a completely different ecosystem and access, because there's not a single game developer who's ever said, I won't show you something, or this is what we did, and in a very excited way. And sharing of information and techniques is like pretty high up there on things that we all do just kind of naturally. Whereas like in animation, you're in competition with the person right next to you, and yeah, they're like one of your best friends or whatever, but they may not be there the next time, on the next job, when the next job comes along. So a lot of you have been probably seen Munchkin. This was the teaser for it. So 2013. I don't know if I have sound.
No sound.
And sorry if I spilled it earlier, because that one I forgot they go in the other order. But yeah, so this was actually canceled. There's no reason why it should have been, in my opinion, except that Steve Jackson, who's the holder of Munchkin, licensing it to us wasn't quite the option, and so they had a lot of hands-on. Super great guys, but they're a board game company, and they weren't really ready to relinquish control to a video game company to make the decisions that needed to get made in a timely manner. Just for example, it would take them sometimes a month for them to view a demo and give us feedback. And that is like an insane amount of time for video game, but it's nothing for a board game. Like a month, to review these things. We got to play it and all this, so there was just kind of almost a gamer culture, a game dev culture divide, and they weren't quite ready. But there's other Munchkin things out there. If you're not familiar with Munchkin, the breakdown with that is it's just a Dungeons and Dragons parody. So instead of like a sword, you would have like a Limburger sandwich to defeat the internet troll and stuff like this. Anyway, one more of my. This one was a success. So, and was actually released, and it's a Nickelodeon. What is it? So, I don't know. Sorry. Can you hear the video music? Should I turn it off? Oh, you can't hear the video music at all. Okay. Sorry. Bummer. Well, that's okay. I won't do it at all. Then that other video made less sense. It's fine. Moving on. This is people who don't know who Big Time Rush is. It is a manufactured boy band from Nickelodeon. Circa 2012 is when we got involved, but they were already kind of on the decline at that point. They'd already had like 7 seasons of a TV show or something. To me, they're the modern day equivalent of the Monkees, but since nobody knows who that is anymore, it's not, really relevant. They basically are here for show, and we had to make a dance clone, dance game, and we had to do this in 3 months. So that was the catch. Like we were given like a Nintendo. Here, hold on a second. I actually have this. This is something you're probably not going to see around much longer, but here's a dev console for the Wii. And this is it's got a hard drive in it and some other things. But I'm not actually supposed to have this, and now it'll be on YouTube. Nintendo, come and get it. The reason I'm not supposed to have it is because I'm not really licensed to work on Nintendo games. However, Black Lantern, the people who hired us, had all the equipment, and they gave us the equipment to use, and then they failed to pay us a little, for about a third of what we were owed. So we kept their equipment, and it was useless because even in 2012, this was like the end decline of the Wii, and I really hope that my game was the last one ever to be printed for this machine, because the Wii U came out that Christmas too. So it was like very. The reason I only had 3 months to work on this is because they had dropped a ball on the contract, and we're desperate and we're looking for suckers to try and pawn the license off on and blame us for anything. And we were like, okay, well, how much money are we talking? Because we don't mind taking the fall for you if there's enough money involved, and we'll put something out, but the quality will suffer. And they're like, okay, the quality can suffer. It just needs to be on the shelves for Black Friday. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. I get it now. We're just creating a poster. But it's a playable poster, and it's not terrible. It isn't great, but it works, and it's a clone. And I am actually quite proud that we passed Nintendo certification on the first try, and yeah, there ends that story. If you, I usually save this for the end, but just in case I forget, feel free to cyber stalk me anytime. It's just Kyle Rhône at LinkedIn or whatever. Not at LinkedIn, that's an email, but here it is, right there. And shoot me a message if you want to talk about anything that I do, or if I can help you in any way. Let me know. And also this, if you are an aspiring game dev, then this is the most important starting point. All right. So I wish this had existed when I was started in game development. So I point everybody to it immediately. It's basically by location where there are game developers. So here in, what is that, Richmond, probably Virginia or something. Oh, well, gee, not a lot. Let's do where we live, though. Portland? There we go, Portland. Unfortunately, it's a very tiny map. They don't have like you can't zoom in or nothing. But here's Portland. Here I am down at the bottom, technically over the bridge, but I can see you guys from here. Well, not you in the UK, but wherever you guys are at. Our most popular, probably most well known, is Fulbright. I would contact them for what it's what an indie game dev success looks like. They did Gone Home and Tacoma, and Tacoma. I don't know. So some games that have actually released on Epic and Steam and stuff like that. We actually have quite a few here in Portland, so check them out. Rose City Games and the Portland Indie Game Squad are basically twins, but they're run by the same people. But the one that you want to check out is the Portland Indie Game Squad, the Pig Squad. All right. This this is basically the place to go and meet people to make games and such. If you need an artist, this is where to look. If you need a musician, this is definitely the place to look. Coder, so on. So what are the big four are in game design are art, visual arts, the sonic arts, the programming or code arts, and then the game design. So with these four things, you make a video game, and you just come and hang out, really. And these kind of game jam societies exist everywhere. I know there's 2 or 3 in Chicago, or well, I mean not 3, but there's a few in Chicago, and down in Phoenix, pretty much anywhere. There's whatever community you live in, seek these people out, because they will be your best way into finding jobs and honing your craft. All right, and that's really what I kind of want to focus on today, is like honing your craft. If you, one more actually. This one's over here in Vancouver. Does it say Vancouver, or what does it say? Night Dive. One more. That says Portland. Yeah. Okay. Night Dive currently holds the license for BioShock, System Shock. My bad. Just so many shocks. System Shock, and I don't know the status of it, but they're making like a new version. This Night Dive has actually mostly made their money on games that they have licensed from like the 90s, but then they updated them for modern day hardware. So in the process of accumulating licenses from years of old, they had System Shock, and they knew all the developers of System Shock. So Kickstarter comes around and they start having ideas, and they created basically System Shock 3, or they're in the process of it. I forget. I haven't checked in with them in a while. But anyway, so there's cool stuff happening around Portland. Come play. That's all I really have to say. Come play with us. All right. So, are there any questions so far? Like, all right, cool. Basically, I gotta rush it now. So, the life of a video game. What is it, and how far does it go? What's the lifespan of a video game? It's kind of, we used to call it life cycle, but now we call it life. I should really type that in there. Span. This is span. Lifespan of a video game. So first things first, you kind of have several categories, and the first category is your design area. And every design kind of starts with an idea. This is very basic, but no one thing in video games is difficult. Nothing, in fact. It just requires you to know where all the parts are. So it's maybe more of an organizational thing, but no, this is all within everybody's reach, is I guess what I want to say. So your idea probably sucks. All right. And you're going to need to beat it up a little bit to pass muster in an actual environment. So the first thing you got to do is share your idea. That's actually incorrect. let me back up here. That's actually number 3. Boop. The first thing after you have an idea is actually to write it down. All right. If you cannot do this part, then you're screwed. Then you just have an idea that's a really good idea that's never going to get off the ground. Okay. And you'll have no idea if it sucks or not, because you really have never given it a chance. So write it down. And this is kind of like the minimum of thing that you have to do to even realize if your idea is great or has potential, because until you can write it down in a kind of succinct manner, then you're going to have difficulty sharing your idea with others. So this is going to take a lot of iteration, and I'll get into that actually right now. I'll just skip ahead to iteration. So pretty much everything that is a creative art or creative work, there's art, work, science, these are all kind of in the same category, just different words, but we say art and then kind of specify visual or audio or design. So in any iterative design, you have kind of 3 steps. You have the design, and you have the build, and you have the test, and then you kind of go back to design. And you'll see a lot of things like this to iterate with arrows. And it's mostly correct. This is one of the bigger things that people forget to do, is to have a goal, right? So when a client sees this, they just see spinning wheels, and they're like, oh, that's just going to eat up all money forever. You're going to just design it, you're going to build it, and then you're going to test it to see if it passes muster. Then you're going to redesign it, and you're going to rebuild it. And so really there has to be a goal in mind first. And if you just look up iterative design on Google, you'll get a bunch of these kind of diagrams. But so let's modify it slightly, where this is kind of the design area, test area. And once we've done this initial design, we're like, is it worth it? And then we come in, we're like, okay, we'll work on the next bit to achieve our goal. And, it kind of will spiral in like this, thus having like an end to your design process. And you can say like, okay, client, you get 3 of these bad boys, and then we have to renegotiate for more money or whatever the contract says. All right. So this is pretty useful. And whenever you see like a little spiral like that, that's my indicator for iterate this a bunch. Let me just write that down. And this goes for everything. This is like if you're working on a piece of music, you got to block it out. If you're writing a script, do a first draft. If you're drawing, you never just draw right away. You like kind of sketch things out in order to have, whatever kind of, you're picking out the lines, and then you like switch your color, and then you pick the lines that you really, really want. Oops, this is just not. There you go. Yeah, I want this hairline, and you get the idea. I'm iterating it until there's a finished product. This is animation, art, science. This is, and that's the thing people kind of forget, that this iterative design is essentially science. This is what's your hypothesis? Can you prove that? Can you not? If you didn't do that, so this would be like the hypothesis. This would be the, I don't know, experiment, and this is like the review or something. Whatever. It's been a long time. I don't know those words anymore. Okay. Next. So we share it. Who do you share it to? Start with your mom. Your mom is kind and she loves everything you do. So go ahead, your immediate family, your best friends, they are not trustworthy because they care about your feelings, but they will workshop this with them, because if they have like, oh, that reminds me of blank, and you're like, oh, well, I didn't want you to remind of that, but what's your intent with the game? And that's kind of a designer's job, is to try and figure out what the intent of the emotional intent. I'll say that. This is, I actually have to, no, it's okay. I got tons of frames, so it's fine. This isn't gonna go sideways very well. So what the emotional intent, and then this falls squarely into user experience. So UX is user experience, and that is different than user interface, which is the means by which you interact with the user experience. Now, in web design, these two things are kind of the same, but in video games, they are very different. So just keep that in mind. You'll see a lot of jobs that are UX UI, and those are probably website design jobs. But check it out. If they're in video game design, they might follow this format too, but whatever. So user experience or player experience is of kind of the utmost importance, right? This is like the equivalent of a patron at a movie theater. You're taking them on like a story, an emotional story ride, and games are a little bit different. Like they can be that. There are a lot of Final Fantasies and such that are tear jerkers, and you can kind of get these emotional highs and lows, and we do that on purpose, but that's kind of what we're playing with, is like the cinematic idea, but in an interactive environment. So if you understand at all how movies work, you're in a good shape to transfer into this industry. If you don't, it's fine. there are lots of things to do in this industry, and that's what's so cool about it, is you don't get bored. You can just migrate around and then come back and be like, oh, it's been 10 years since I animated something, which is kind of the boat that I'm in. And I'm like, oh, okay, this Blender is awesome now, and I'm going to start using that. And that's in fact what I'm using right now is Blender. It's in 3D, but I get to draw. You can draw straight on to the like, it's kind of crazy. Super chaotic. But so I guess one of the things I would don't be careful that you're not like get one tool for each of these things under your belt. So if you like sound design, get a DAW under your belt, get the music pumping with FL Studio or something, something else. You can get for visuals, Blender is great. Photoshop, obviously. I'm trying to go over to open source things. So Krita, Blender, and Inkscape are all great. And these equivalents are Photoshop, well, Painter, let's say Painter, 3D Studio Max or any of those, and Inkscape is Illustrator. So they're maturing quite well at this point, and very nearly production ready. Blender is production ready, by the way. Sorry, don't focus too much on the tools. Just get one kind of under your belt, because pretty much no matter where you go, they're going to have a slightly different tool. So the concepts are going to be important for you to understand. So when you're like, oh, where's that extrude tool? Oh, I can go find it, or I know the terminology to ask where this new, of the new tool, it acts the same. And I've actually recently just switched over to the Godot engine, which is also open source. And I highly recommend it. It's really great. It's essentially like Unity. But yeah, I did Unity for like 12 years. That's what we built that Big Time Rush game in. And the only reason it looked kind of crappy was that because the Wii couldn't handle, it was just old. We couldn't handle the graphics that we were building for it. Anyway, but it is okay to be limited by your equipment, by your art. If you only have a stick, go ahead and start designing in the dirt. Game designers always go to the bar and draw on napkins. I have a friend at Bungie. Pretty much all he does is mission designer, and he's like downstairs. There's a bar at the bottom of their building, so he hangs out down there and then pops back up after lunch and stuff. So that's where a game designer or mission designer definitely, right in these two, you gotta have the idea, you have to write it down in a way that you can share it to your programmers, and the stuff will get done. All right. Key tools for here are just any of the Google Docs kind of thing. So Docs, or what's the other one? Notes, Sheets, I think. Yeah, Sheets. What do they call it? Get some experience in running numbers in a spreadsheet, and how to do that, because that will come into play when you're as a game designer. You'll want to rebalance your game at any point. You'll have all this stuff kind of organized with kind of any kind of math dependencies, like if there's like a +1 or a -2 or whatever. All right. And typically in the old days, what you would do is create a game design document. All right, or a GDD. This is kind of the document that in the old days you would build all up front, and then ship off to a developer to build, and then we would get something back. And you would just sell this to a publisher. All right, and then the publisher would make it into whatever, like if you sell it to EA or something. And then your job would kind of be over, and they would be in charge. So this isn't really the way it works anymore. Game design documents are much more living documents. And that's because we've largely moved to this iterative design process. So your GDD is no longer the place where, it is the place you go to find answers, but it's more the place you go to work out what the answers are for questions people have. If that makes sense. It's a bit of a FAQ, it's a bit of a Bible, it's a bit of a, they call them design Bibles, not an actual Bible. So GDD. With this, you could pitch it. You can pitch it again to a publisher or to Kickstarter, which is where I recommend everybody go. For video games, Kickstarter is a little harder, but if you're in board games, you definitely should do Kickstarter. In fact, I feel like Kickstarter is really the place where you test the waters. Yeah, you could get the money, but what you're really shopping around is this idea appealing to anyone? And Kickstarter is kind of the place where you get to ask those questions, because you'll get ripped apart, and that's fine. Don't forget to fail. This is something that I'm kind of realizing, that a lot of people don't like to make mistakes. And then they don't like to admit when they've made mistakes. And they certainly don't want to try to undo any damage that they've done when they make mistakes. So the iterative design has mistakes built into it. Okay, so you're not going to get it right, and that's what these are. These different levels towards the center. This is growth. This is growth towards your goal. All right, so don't forget to fail. It's gonna suck, but you're not going. You're not hurting anyone either. Especially in video games. I like this. That's what I like about software development. It's not as high risk. Like, no one's really gonna die because you failed to get your gravity algorithm working in your game, right? So don't worry about it. Just, yeah, it sucks, but move on. This is where it's hard to check your ego. And I always bring this up too. When you're working in a collaborative environment, and it is very hard to make a video game alone. It is definitely possible. People do it all the time, in fact. Great, works of art and design. But when you're working in a team, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to have to really work hard to recognize them and try to say, hey, your idea is better than mine, because that would be how iterative design also works. Is like, okay, we've blocked it out. Okay, but Kyle did this, and then Kristen did a better head, because it was supposed to be a head, and then Kyle gets miffed for 5 seconds because is no longer showing his art or whatever. Now, or that I think that is not an improvement. And then you have to discuss, and that is valid. And if you just approach people with respect, and say your reasoning, try to have reasons for stuff. That's really where Like, and then you can, argue about whether or not your reason is more valid, or and there are ways to kind of like triage this through like who is your customer base, and what are we trying to go, and what are they expecting, and back up to here. So it is kind of like an interweaving web of things happening all at once. But all of this is before you do a lick of code. All right. So people jump into coding way too fast. Programmers, I understand, they think in that way already, and by all means do that. But don't forget to pop out and write something on a little post-it for every so often, to make sure that you're still kind of maintaining your direction, because it's very easy for artists and programmers both to get like tied up in like the details of like something that's maybe not that important. To the larger case anyway. All right, that all makes sense. Like, not too bad. Okay, so that's kind of design part of development. Let's move on to so that's kind of the designer area. Or we'll do designer. Squeezing stuff in. So, and what does the developer do? Well, the developer talks with the designer, and probably is just on the developer's team. The designer, the designer has to be on. I can't imagine a scenario where the game designer is not on the team in some scenario. So, yeah, let's just say the developers got design. They've got logic and sonic and visual. And these are kind of like the big departments. And there's nothing to say that, this is kind of my departments here. Like I can do all three of these things to some extent. And that's kind of usually where I'm at. The guy, the captain of the ship, kind of, you have to more delegate things, or otherwise your ship goes nowhere. Micromanaging would be like me trying to row the whole thing myself. So there's an element of like business and built into the indie scene, because your customers, you're going directly to your customers and saying, hey, give me some money. I'm self-publishing. So we talked about the design. That was kind of on the last sheet. So logic, this is all about code and trying to design things in a way that makes sense to everyone. So I'm a pretty big fan of object-oriented design and object-oriented programming for games. And if you don't know what that is, and you're a programmer, check it out. All it really is like 20 questions. So if you have, you start asking like, is it animal, vegetable, or mineral, right? And then you say, okay, it's an animal. And an animal, is it got 4 legs? Does it got 8 legs? All right. And so if you have a spider, it's got 8 legs. So a spider is an animal, and it can move its legs. And a cat is an animal that can move its legs. But the only difference between them is, well, in this scenario, the only difference is the legs. So this is kind of like the essential part of an inheritance. So you can put logic here at the animal level, saying it can move, which is something you want to do in video games a lot. It has like a health, O-A-T-H, and so on and so forth. And by inheritance, by value of inheritance, the spider also has move and health, and the cat has move and health. But the spider knows additional things besides that. The spider knows how to move its 8 legs without tripping over itself, and the cat would likewise know how to hunt and whatever, but the cat can't spin webs, right? So you can start to divide what things by what they can do, things by what they do or what they are. So a cat is an animal, but a cat has the ability to run, if that makes sense. All right, make everything like this. and this is what we take once the programmers kind of have an idea of the general ideas, then we kind of turn that around into a folder structure that's something similar or something that makes sense based on whatever that is. So folder structure. Folder structure and naming conventions. Sorry, handwriting is getting sloppy. So naming conventions and the folder structure are kind of important when you work in a team, just so that when you're off remotely and you say, "Hey, Kyle, it's in the whatever folder," I know what you're talking about, and I know the naming convention so I can search just in case. So these two things are often overlooked as things that should go under the logic category. Thus, programmers should have like significant input. But each one of these should have its own folder. We do. We basically have these as folders in our jobs, and so like the music goes here, the dialogue, or oftentimes this is called voiceover, like narration, dialogue, sound effects, all have their own separate folders. And then there's like working folders and export folders on top of each one of these things. And that all just kind of has to be managed by somebody. So visual arts, we have 2D and 3D typically. Games, like you see very rarely see them switch between the two, although most 3D games will have at least a menu in 2D. So, but it's really irrelevant. What is the majority of your game in? So 2D kind of goes with sprites, and 3D goes with models. And the cool thing about this is that there's just only, this is just plus one dimension. There's not, people get freaked out about 3D really pretty quickly. And it's understandable because we're used to looking into a flat plane on our screen. And, all this is 2D via pixels. And so it's kind of crazy how do you use a 2D interface to do 3D things, right? Like in VR, this is a little bit less of a problem. I got a good friend, Tom, who should probably come talk to you guys sometime about what he's doing in VR, kind of modeling and weight painting, where, when you're in the environment and you can kind of step around and look around, it's a little easier to navigate in 3D. But anyway, 3D math is really not any harder than 2D math at this point. I mean, it's incredibly complex, but the tools are already there for you to just use. 2D and 3D work on transformations. And that's just move, scale, let's do move, rotate, and scale. And 3D transformations just have one more, pretty much, of everything. I guess it's got two more for rotating. Sprites can only rotate around that one axis. So, All right, so we got sprites, and this kind of goes into Pixel. There's kind of two kinds of programs that do 2D art. Pixel, oh yeah, Pixel and Vector.
I'm guarding the danger tunnel. So
Pixel is Photoshop, Illustrator is Vector. The only difference is pixels like do each pixel on the screen or on your file, and you hang tight. So here's these pixels, and you just get to color in whichever one you want. And whereas like a vector program, like this one that I'm currently using, is got the ability to move these things around. You'd have to select the pixels and move them around. But you can see on here, if I zoom in, this is, oops, sorry, this. I can tweak these and edit these dots. Okay, so this is just math, and the only thing stored on the hard drive are these points, and we're counting on the program to just draw this in real time. All right. Pixels are a little different. You can buffer them into memory and you just flash them to the screen, so they're faster actually. Or well, it depends. It really depends. So there we go. This is vector, and pixels work more like that. How much time we got? Like 10 minutes or so. Oh gee, I didn't really get through the whole life of a thing, but this is more like what developers do, and maybe that's it. I do want to make sure we leave time for questions or whatever. Popular programs, that was Photoshop, Illustrator, Blender for modeling. There's no reason to just, major studios are switching to Blender, so no reason not to learn it. It works really well. In 2 years ago, I don't think I could have recommended it, but I was using it. I really wanted to recommend it, but now I can kind of safely say it does everything that Maya can do, and maybe more. Big plug for my Blender buds. All right. Animation is kind of with both of these as well. So 2D animation is quite significantly different than 3D animation. And hang tight. I'm just going to delete this guy. And 3D animation tends to operate around a skin, and here, whoops, oh, just come on. All right, there we go. It's a dude, and there are bones inside of. Why does that switch the color back? Bones kind of drawn between these, where you'd have some bones for the spine, and then break out into bones for the legs, where you'd have a knee joint. And then by manipulating these bones, it would deform the mesh, and so on and so forth. And you can do the same thing in 2D animation with computers now. But in 2D animation, they tended to be more frame swapping. Actually, I don't know why I'm doing this, because I can just do this.
Wait, what?
All right.
Ow.
So there you go. You can have a little animation there of a ball going plop. So this is definitely the animation, what animation used to be, and there's all sorts of like tricks and stuff in here that, because that's all this really is. It's all an illusion. like the entire thing, right? Like you're frame swapping to create the illusion of motion. And as an animator, like your job is to kind of bring things to life through that motion. The two main differences is they both take pretty much the same exact amount of time production-wise, but the benefits are you can see things much quicker over here, and this takes a lot longer to set up before you can see if it's going to fail. However, the continuity over here, continuity, all right, is much more stable over here because the different animators could move the rig and move the model without, you know, drawing a big nose for, you know, when it was supposed to be like this. And when you frame swap between those, you'll notice, right? All right, I'll quit there. Didn't get into publishing. Publishing's largely over. Those guys are dinosaurs, and I think they know it. But then that kind of puts the onus back on the developer. So let's just finish off the developer. You make a game, it's super famous, or it failed. It doesn't matter. And what do you do with that game? Well, there's kind of two options. You either say the game is out and you do a couple of bug releases and then move on to the next project. But much more common these days is to stick with the same thing and iterate it through Kickstarter and whatever, and early access, because early access is huge at the moment. I couldn't tell you that I would do that, but I mean, I'm like, I would as a developer do that, absolutely. Like get your fan base, get feedback right away. Absolutely, that's a gold mine for developers. I'm not sure. I mean, I get the sense of inclusiveness and putting your kind of mark on a game, but I would have never guessed that this was where we would have gone in terms of like video games and interaction with your customers. This is something I talk about a lot in my classes. I also teach a class at PCC on this stuff too, in fact. And it's just kind of interesting to see the evolution of this field. It's surprising in good ways. So yeah, any questions about what I've talked about? I could go on and on. So
feel free to unmute yourself, or you can. It looks like John has a question.
Yeah, John, what's up?
Hi, Kyle. I'm just curious about like how to break into the Portland, like, you know, I guess gaming like community and get your first start there. I'm actually attending Tech Academy again for the second time around. Actually, I did my certificate in software development. I'm doing my certificate in game development with Tech Academy again, and I'm a graduate of a game development program. But I'm just trying to figure out how to get started with that first game development job. It doesn't seem there's a roadmap or any kind of real guidance on how to do that.
Go here.
Okay.
Here. I'll invite you guys. How do I post this into the chat with everyone? You know, this is so much nicer than Zoom.
There is a chat box on the bottom right-hand corner.
I got it. There. So feel free to that is open to everyone in Portland. Well, it's really open to anyone, and a lot of it is just online anyway. This guy Will, he's the guy with the beard, and he's kind of like the leader. But there's, I don't know how many, too many people to really know at this point. But they'll, as soon as COVID is done, they'll probably have some more in-person things. You can see here, Lucky Lab is one of the channels, and they have in-person Lucky Lab meets at Lucky Lab breweries around town to have little game festivals or show and tells or code night or an art night or these kind of things. A lot of that has now moved online because of COVID. and they say it's working out so well, they'll probably just keep doing it that way for the most part, but then have a few get-togethers. Usually every year they have a showcase of a game jam showcase of like all the games that have been made in Portland. Those are always fun to go to. I volunteer with them from time to time, but that's how you break in. And also me, like, me. Like it's one of those things that people, it's hard to answer this question because there's not like a formal, I mean, you can send an email, but I guarantee you that's not going to work. It will, unless you have like a killer portfolio and for some reason don't know anybody, then, yeah, you can try the front door, but usually you just find people who are already working there and you say, hey, what's going on in this area? And Portland is okay. Portland isn't really that great. It is not as good as Reykjavik. But it is okay. I would say for jobs, and we're just strictly talking jobs here, not quality of life or anything like that. But for jobs, the closest places for us are kind of in Bellevue, just 2 hours north up here towards Seattle. And they've got, this is ArenaNet is the Guild Wars 2 people, Bungie's there. There's Valve, Epic, Seattle. This isn't Seattle though. I would try for Bellevue. Can you organize by city? Oh, come on, you guys. Whatever. Anyway, so there's quite a lot more just a few hours north. I mean, look at that big list. Check it out. Play with this map as much as you can. Dream. Get your passport if you can. That's we are really not limited by geography much anymore. In this field, you can go work, wherever you want. What's this? Virgin Islands or San Juan? Oh, Puerto Rico, of course. What is this? Great. Anyway, this is how I met people. I just clicked on this thing and then I scrolled down and I said, oh, okay, what's here? CCP. Okay. This is the this is huge. This is the EVE Online people. And so they already have like basically a huge studio. Sorry, my internet is garbage. And so since they have a major game studio there, they have kind of a lot of turnover. And those people who have now been trained in kind of this official AAA MMO type atmosphere spin off all their own little, and things. So Pig Squad, and if you want the equivalent of Pig Squad, it's well, actually, it's not this, but this will get you there eventually. Whereas that's not game industry. Whereas Game Makers Iceland. Here we go. Sorry. Game Makers Iceland is kind of the same as Pig Squad. They have get-togethers. This was actually the office that I worked in for a while. But yeah, they have the same kinds of things, and these are just free, open to the people events. So wherever you're at, try to find one. In fact, I feel like there's a lot of UK people, in fact, here in this gamer one, because I see a lot of, they have a Slack, and every now and then there's like job openings that come through, and there are job openings in like the UK because Iceland's just like right there. But anyway, as for Pig Squad, just check out here, looking for work, just post in here, say hey, and then throw up your portfolio and get input on your portfolio. Yeah, that's how to break in. Get a kick-ass portfolio. That's what which everybody needs. In programming, that is just like I've made a game and show the game somewhere on like itch.io. Next question?
I think Sanjeev had a question.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
So yeah, actually it's perfect that you were talking about itch.io and like portfolio pieces. I was kind of gonna ask, what level of polish should I be aiming for these portfolio pieces? Like as a programmer, should I focus more on making like prototypes, or should I like dive into, you know, creating art for these prototypes and like polishing it up a bit?
No, it depends on what you're trying to do.
What was that?
I would the first one, like make a couple games that you like, throw them up here. They don't need to be too. These are all pretty polished games. Well, I don't know if I'd say that, but like they've had time to do things, so it doesn't need to be like the best art or anything. If you're going into programming, I think the game mechanics, well, that's more design as well, but having the ability to, what I would do for a programmer would be to test them, would be to kind of give them something to do, and then see how they problem solve that. I've been trying to think of games that I would add to like my my hiring process. There's a couple of them that are kind of, I don't know, they're fun. Stanley Parable. Anybody ever play Stanley? So I was thinking about, like, at one point in the past, having prospective employees like send me a video of them playing Stanley Parable, and then I would watch that and see are they people who like to break things, or are they people who like to follow the rules, or are they people who, you know, what I mean, it just tells you a little bit more about who they are. But I never implemented anything like that. Typically, I trust everyone. And if they screw me over, then I would rather have the few times that they screw me over instead of all the times when I could have been making friends. So I have been screwed over. Yeah, I've lost 40K like that, and had to like had to eat it and absorb that. And, you know, there's shit like that. So fortunately, we're a lightweight studio, and we can kind of, and that's how pretty much everybody try to float above the turbulence. All right, just hop around on the tops of the clouds and let the turbulent stuff kind of flow beneath you, if at all possible. We can no longer really count on retirement funds to be there, or work for X company for 50 years and retire. That just doesn't exist anymore, right? So hone your skill set. That's the important thing. Think of yourself as an instrument. Yeah, this is no different. Hone your programming. Program a lot. Paint a lot if you want to do painting. Seek out other painters. Ask them for tips. Seek out other programmers. I can give you all the programming tips that I do, and the biggest tip is, like, it's not super hard. so programming these days is actually more like speaking a language than ever before. So you just say the right incantations, type them into the computer, and magic happens on the screen. So it's very much a world of wonder, but it does have a grind. There's a grind to it too. So there's a balance. But I wouldn't do anything else. This is, yeah. We should all be in this industry. There should be nothing but this industry. All right. Any other questions? Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, if you.
Oh, it looks like John has another question.
Yeah. What's up?
I was just curious, like, for tech designers, like, what would you say would be the best things for them to focus on their portfolios for? It's kind of in between two worlds, between, like, you know, scripting and programming and design, you know what I mean? So any advice there?
So okay, is the question that you have what kind of design again? Just like
technical game design, like like in some companies, there's the actual role of a technical designer, and their roles kind of
yes.
go almost like bardic. I mean, like they feel different. Like they do scripting sometimes, they do design sometimes, they do a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, there are technical artists, there are technical directors, they're kind of it just really depends on where you're working, and it will probably be slightly different in all these areas. But yeah, because I've seen jobs for technical artists for strictly shader programming and the same exact job, but for strictly tools programming within like Maya or something.
Yeah.
So it can vary a lot. I'm not quite sure how to answer that, but yeah, there does seem to be on teams a gap between like the traditional programmer and the visual artist, right? And they got to work together. They don't quite, like an artist is not going to like a bunch of clanky tools to work with, and the programmer is not going to necessarily understand that they have to preserve the color ratio or whatever. And so this is born like the technical artist to kind of go in between these two fields, mostly a logical programmer, but understands the art concepts enough, or enough art theory to merge the two, I guess.
Mhm.
But I would really only say that that's at larger studios. So maybe 20. Once you get up to 15, probably on board one of those. Something just in general, ballpark, I guess.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
It looks like Josh has a question as well.
All right. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it. Are you there, Josh?
Josh, we can't hear you.
I feel like I can see you, kind of.
Yes, I know.
Very matrixy.
He's in the
If you-
mainframe.
Yeah, you're.
If you want, you can type your question in the chat box if you're having issues with the speaker,
Yeah.
and I'll read it out loud. Maybe it was a mistake. I'm not sure.
All right. Well, any other questions from anyone else? That's okay. Josh, if you've got a dying question, go ahead and pass it through Tech Academy. They'll forward it on to me, and I can hook up with you some other time. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, I am in Pig Squad. I don't know why I didn't say that. Good boy. So here I'm here. It says Kyle Rhône, probably. Oh God, so many.
I also shared your LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect with you on that.
Great. Yeah, just come into Pig Squad. Forget it. There's a search. Yeah, I'm sure there's a couple Kyles. Really?
Maybe they took you off the list.
Maybe. I know. Here we are. I guess just keep typing. Zog Jones. But yeah, there you go.
It looks like Josh will ask the question on Discord. So.
All right, awesome, dude. Yeah, just DM me. That's cool. But don't be afraid to reach out to any of these guys in pink up here. The volunteers even are probably good to talk to. These are the organizers here are the board of directors for this, nonprofit thing. All right. Okay, cool. In that case, I guess I'll sign off. If you need me no longer, I will go do something else.
All right. Thank you, Kyle, so much. And thanks for everyone else for joining us. You had an awesome presentation. It looks like people already want you back for another one.
Okay.
But
Yes.
we can definitely make that happen.
Yeah, I can. I would be glad to.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.